Participation in sports has proven benefits for people's physical and mental health, and for social well-being as well. Grassroots sports, also known as community sports, are non-professional activities run primarily for these social and health benefits. However, sports are still an exclusionary setting for women, LGBTQ+ people, and people living with disabilities.
In a recent survey of 670 people involved in community sport, 55% of all participants said they had witnessed or experienced gender imbalance, sexist language, and jokes. 28% of women said they had even considered leaving their sports club due to inequitable treatment. Nationally, more than 1 in 3 trans people reported experiencing gender-based bullying or exclusion in sports and fitness settings. The same proportion of people with disabilities had recently encountered barriers to participating in physical sport, exercise, and recreation.
Basic Rights Queensland identified a lack of knowledge about discrimination in grassroots sports settings. To address this gap, our research question is, how do participants in grassroots sports in Queensland experience and navigate discrimination in relation to their gender and/or disability status? Our aims are to understand the lived experience of people who face discrimination in community sports in Queensland, to suggest how this informs better policy, education, and advocacy, and to bring further light to this issue for the wider public. In semi-structured interviews, we asked participants to narrate their experiences of inclusion and exclusion in community sports, including how they felt and what they did to deal with such situations. 5 participants were interviewed in total, both in person and online, depending on participants' availability. Out of these, 4 identified themselves as living with disabilities, 2 identified as women, 2 as cisgendered men, and 1 as non-binary.
We transcribed and analyzed the interviews using thematic analysis, coding the conversations line by line, then grouping these under common themes.
Our findings were marked by 6 key themes, which we group along 2 dimensions: impacts on victims and what needs to change. Participants said that incidents of discrimination, as well as lackluster responses to them, felt like a denial of their agency and their worth as a human being. This was often the result of others, coaches, organizers, opponents, and teammates alike, making paternalistic judgments about their capabilities. They have got no idea what we can do, what we cannot do. I know what we can do. I've been reeling my whole life. They have not. I know I can achieve this, and they try to tell me I don't have the experience for it. Efforts to address discrimination were often met with indifference by institutions. Pursuing justice where possible was only at the cost of personal sacrifices, those being time, money, and mental exhaustion. Participants felt that this daunting process led to perpetrators of discrimination escaping consequences when victims felt it was not worth the trouble. Well, not that they hurt my feelings, they just treat me unjustly. They seem to act above the law. Participants contextualized their experiences in sport as a symptom of the larger everyday reality of ableism and gender discrimination. Incidents on the sporting field were distressing in their own right, but they also pile on to negative experiences accumulated off the field. Exclusion affects how participants navigated their life outside of sport.
Participants often stress the difficulties in knowing where to go for help. A well-promoted, geographically widespread, accessible service to assist in finding legal consult and other support services would reduce the burden on victims in the wake of discrimination. Too often, the burden of taking up a complaint falls to individuals who have to be willing to sacrifice their time, their resources, and their mental well-being. Participants highlight the proactive responsibilities of people in positions of power to become competent in what constitutes inclusion and discrimination. These extend to more representative and diverse leadership. Finally, a recurring theme found among all participants is that spreading awareness through education will lead to better outcome for people who are facing the same problem. People who work for organizations should be more aware that discriminatory action is wrong, especially on the legal level.
First, the culture of a sports club plays a major role in whether individuals feel safe in calling out discrimination. While formal inclusion policies and educational resources may be valuable steps, addressing the day-to-day practices and language which normalize discrimination is necessary to address the fears of rocking the boat that keep so many victims from taking action. Second, services which act as a point of first contact, such as Legal Aid Queensland, need to be more widely publicized. Community legal centers and low-cost legal services, especially those which operate in regional areas, need sufficient resourcing to support the people who reach out to them for help. At the legal level, shifting to a positive duty model would put the responsibility on organizations to take proactive and meaningful action to prevent and stop discrimination, as opposed to the current system, which relies on complaints made when discrimination has already occurred. This model could ease the disproportionate burden and sense of exhaustion spoken about by participants.
We hope that diverse experience we have talked about today can help make sport more equitable and inclusive for everyone.